Real life after 80. No one hands you a manual for it. You wake up one morning to a familiar ceiling and an unfamiliar feeling. A quiet that has weight to it. A pace that used to be chosen and now feels assigned. If you're here, you've already done the long work of building a life, raising people, carrying burdens, keeping promises. But there's a chapter that arrives whether we invite it or not, and it asks different questions than the ones that came before. This film isn't here to scare you or wrap things in tidy bows. It's here to open the blinds, gently, and let in enough light to see what's really in the room. The brutal realities of aging loneliness after 80, and the stubborn, surprising strengths that stand beside them. There's a way loneliness in later life can look like the weather. Always there, sometimes heavy, sometimes a light mist you can ignore if you keep moving. But underneath it are patterns, predictable in their own way, that, once understood, can be faced with clearer eyes and steadier hands. We'll walk through 5 of them. You'll hear some stories. You'll recognize yourself, or someone you love, and I hope you'll feel less alone inside whatever you're carrying. Let's begin with the shrinking circle you never agreed to. That's the first pattern. People don't vanish all at once. They thin out like an old photograph, edges fading before the center does. Ruth used to host Sunday soup after church. No invites. Just an open door and a pot big enough to feed whoever wandered in. At 82, she still set out more bowls than she needed, as if habit could conjure bodies. But chairs stayed empty. Couples moved south. Neighbors downsized to someplace with grab bars and staff. A few friends slipped away one winter and didn't return in spring. Ruth started learning the new geometry of her days. Fewer corners, more quiet. Shrinking circles hurt for 2 reasons. First, they take away witnesses. The people who can finish your sentences because they were there when the sentences began. Second, they change the math of a day. Conversation used to arrive like the post. Reliable, varied. After 80, it's a delivery you sometimes have to go fetch yourself. That isn't a failure, it's a shift in strategy. Ruth began writing small notes on cream stationery and mailing them to women in her building. Tea at 2, I have shortbread. She joined a reading group that didn't mind when she skimmed. She asked the young man at the front desk about his dog each time she passed. None of this replaced the old circle, but it braided a new thread through the hours, one knot at a time. If the first pattern is a circle that narrows, the second is a body that doesn't bounce back like it used to. It's not betrayal. It's physics. Harold, 85, used to mow 2 lawns in an afternoon. His and the neighbors. Then stand at the fence and talk tomatoes. This summer, a small cough lingered past its welcome. A doctor visit, a new inhaler, a prescription for patience. The cough eased, but Harold measured the recovery in smaller signs. A nap he didn't fight. Stairs he took slower. A lawn he mowed in halves instead of one proud sweep. He kept asking the same frustrated question. When do I feel normal again? The honest answer. He was feeling a new normal and didn't recognize it yet. The truth that catches many off guard after 80 is how a minor thing can rearrange a whole week. A kinked back means moving the kettle to a lower shelf. A dizzy spell means parking the pride and taking the handrail. Recovery is still possible, often beautifully so, but it has a different rhythm. Gloria discovered this after a small fall she didn't even tell her daughter about. What changed her life wasn't the bruise. It was the confidence that leaked out around it. Her solution wasn't dramatic. She asked the clinic nurse to show her how to stand up from a chair using the armrests and her breath. She set a timer for 10-minute walks, inside, on carpet, twice a day. She circled Tuesday in pen and wrote, gardening magazine, so she had something to look forward to that didn't require bending. The bounce didn't come back, but a steadier footing did, built from respect for what her body has already carried. Now we come to the third pattern. The quiet creep of needing help and not quite knowing how to ask. Loneliness isn't just the absence of people. It can be the presence of tasks that feel a size too big. Eugene, 86, was the family fixer. If the lamp flickered, he had a screwdriver out before anyone could say, socket. One icy morning he slipped on the porch. No break, just a hard bruise and a soft fear that took up residence behind his ribs. For a few weeks he pretended nothing had changed. He took the bins out anyway, shoulder tight, jaw tighter. Then a neighbor, a college student who called him Sir, walked by and said, "You want a hand with that?" It wasn't the offer that undid him. It was the way the young man stood there, waiting as if help were the most ordinary thing in the world. Eugene handed over the bin. The earth kept spinning. Dignity stayed intact. Help can be human. It can also be practical and quiet. A grab bar that doesn't judge, a pair of shoes with good tread, a shower chair that turns risk into routine. There's courage in learning to trade an old version of independence for a wiser one. The exchange rate is fair. You give up a little pride and you buy yourself time. Time to keep doing what matters, in ways that fit the day you're actually living, not the day you remember. The fourth pattern is subtle but piercing. The world starts looking past you as if you've become a ghost in your own story. Lila, 83, went to renew her ID. The clerk talked to her grandson about her, as if the preposition told the truth. As if about was where her life lived now. Lila answered anyway. "He's with me," she said, smiling just enough to keep it courteous, "and I'll answer for myself." Small sentence. Big restoration. Being seen isn't only a courtesy, it's fuel. When the server asks your adult child for your order, when the doctor looks at the computer instead of your face, when the bank teller raises their voice to a shout as if volume replaces respect, you're forced to decide whether to go along or step up. Stepping up doesn't always mean a grand speech. Sometimes it's a simple line you practice beforehand. "Talk to me, please." Or, "I heard you the first time." Or, softer still, "Thanks for slowing down. I want to understand." There's also the quieter work. Keeping your mind supplied. Irene, 86, knew a museum gallery like her own kitchen. For months, visitors drifted past her, asking questions of younger staff who answered from placards Irene helped write. One afternoon, a teenager lingered, reading slowly. Irene stepped closer and said, "I remember the day that photograph was taken." The girl turned and listened. By the time they reached the exit, the teen had a new favorite exhibit, and Irene had proof that her breath still mattered in a room. Sometimes being visible begins with offering a story before you're asked for one. Then there's the fifth pattern, the heaviest for many, the ache that gathers in the quiet when purpose goes fuzzy. The calendar holds more white space. The phone rings, but less. The mind, freed from schedules, wanders into cul-de-sacs named "What if" and "Why didn't I" and "I should have." Stanley, 89, taught math for 4 decades. He once stood at the whiteboard and felt 100 eyes on him, the kind of attention that keeps a heart beating bright. After retiring, he tried golf. He didn't like it. He tried morning news. It made him angry. One day, he took a bus to the library and hung around the homework table. A boy struggled over fractions. Stanley sat, asked a question, and waited. A teacher's patience that time never erases. When the boy finally said, "Oh," Stanley felt a filament inside him glow. He went back the next week, and the next. Purpose didn't look like a paycheck anymore. It looked like showing up in a place where his particular presence made the room better. Redefining purpose after 80 isn't a performance. It's a practice of looking for small fits and letting them count. Maybe it's calling the neighbor who now lives alone and trading weather reports. Maybe it's labeling the photo boxes while you can still name faces. Maybe it's recording 5-minute voice notes telling the story behind the dent in the dining table so the dents don't outlive the meaning. Purpose can be modest and still mighty. Loneliness hates modest purpose the most, because modest purpose shows up daily. If these 5 patterns sound heavy, that's because some days are. But within each is a workable lever. For the shrinking circle, the lever is initiation. Sending the first text, the first card, the first, "Do you want to split a sandwich on Wednesday?" For the slower body, the lever is pacing. One small walk, one stretch, one drink of water before noon. For the growing need for help, the lever is language. 2 or 3 phrases you can actually say when someone offers a hand, or when you need to ask for one without swallowing your pride whole. For the invisibility, the lever is presence, eye contact, a question asked back, a story offered. And for the ache of unclear purpose, the lever is attention. Notice what gives you that quiet yes in the chest and place more of your minutes near it. Let's make this less abstract and more human. Here are 5 short moments. Small, ordinary, doable. First, a Tuesday ritual. Ruth started 2 at 2. Every Tuesday at 2 p.m., she phoned one person from a list on her fridge. Not a long call. 10 minutes. Tell me one good thing and one hard thing, she'd say. The good kept her hopeful. The hard kept her honest. Over months, 2 at 2 became a net that caught her before she slid into long, unbroken afternoons. Second, a body pledge. Harold wrote his on an index card. I move my body for 10 minutes before I sit with the paper. He stuck it to the salt jar. On days when he felt sturdy, he went longer. On days when he felt thin, he walked to the mailbox and back twice. The point wasn't heroics. It was voting for his future self with tiny acts the present self could afford. Third, a help script. Eugene practiced lines out loud until they felt like his. That bag looks heavy. Would you carry it to the porch while I unlock? Or, I've got the top. You take the bottom. It's easier to ask when the words are in your mouth already, warmed up and ready to go. Fourth, a visibility nudge. Lila began saying her name at check-in desks, slowly and clearly, then adding one sentence that asserted her role. I'm the patient. He's with me. She wasn't rude. She was present. That sentence kept doors open, literal and otherwise. Fifth, a small purpose habit. Stanley made a rule. Leave every place a tiny bit better than you found it. In the park, it meant picking up 2 candy wrappers. At the library, it meant pushing chairs back under the table after the homework rush. At home, it meant placing a sticky note on the calendar for his granddaughter. Ask me about the time the power went out for a week. It sounds simple. It is. That's why it works. Loneliness after 80 often hides in logistics. The bus doesn't come often enough. The pharmacy changed their hours. The mailbox sits at the end of a driveway that tilts like a ski slope. The fix for logistics isn't always a friend to call. Sometimes it's a plan written on paper. Lila kept a later list. It held tasks that required more energy than a Wednesday afternoon offered. Change bulb in hallway, toss the shoes that hurt, call about the lower shelf for the oven. On days when she felt strong, she picked one, did it, crossed it out in ink. That little slash of a line gave her back a sense of agency. And agency is loneliness's rival. A word about grief, because this chapter holds a lot of it. The grief of people gone, abilities gone, roles gone. Grief after 80 doesn't show up like it did in midlife. It's less thunder, more tide, out, in, in. On days when it rose high, Ruth sat by the window with a glass of water and named 3 things she could still do without help. I can make the tea. I can choose my sweater. I can open the window for air. Naming didn't fix the ache. It gave the ache a container. Some days, that's what strength looks like. If you're listening and thinking, this is me, then let's add one more tool. Permission. Permission to decline an invitation without guilt because the ride home would drain you for 2 days. Permission to leave the TV off and sit with a poem instead. Permission to say to a grown child, I love you, and I want to see you, and here are 3 ways to make it easier on both of us. Permission, even, to feel lonely in a room full of people and not scold yourself for it. Feelings don't obey lectures. They respond to companionship. Be a companion to your own heart the way you've been to others. You might be thinking about the people who love you and wondering how to help them help you. Give them simple, specific tasks. Broad requests strain relationships. Clear ones strengthen them. Call me on Thursdays on your lunch break. When you come, would you bring stamps? If you see soup on sale, grab 2. Let people succeed at loving you. That success pulls everyone a little closer to the light. What about the days that go wrong anyway? The days when the body hurts, the bus is late, the mailbox holds nothing, and the quiet feels like a wall. On those days, shrink the target. Aim at the smallest action that still honors your life. Harold, on one such day, put a slice of lemon in his water and drank it by the window. It feels like summer in a glass, he said to no one. It wasn't much, it was something. The wall didn't vanish, but a door opened in it, inches wide, enough to slip through. There's one more story I want to tell you. Mr. Chen is 90 and lives 2 doors down from the playground. He keeps a tin of chalk by his front steps. When kids draw hopscotch squares, he adds tiny numbers in the corner like a secret signature. Once, a little girl asked why he did that. He said, "So you'll know this square has a friend." That's what we are to each other at this age and every age. Proof that our squares have friends. When the circle shrinks, when the body slows, when help is needed, when the world looks past us, when purpose wobbles, we can still be that small signature for one another. So where does this leave us? With a handful of truths that aren't gentle and a handful of choices that are. You can choose initiation over waiting. You can choose pacing over pushing. You can choose asking over guessing. You can choose presence over disappearing. You can choose modest purpose over heavy regret. None of these choices requires youth. They require practice. And practice is something you've had a lifetime of. If any part of this landed, hold it for a day and try one small act that matches it. Make the Tuesday call. Put the shoes with tread by the door. Write the sentence you'll say at the check-in desk. Place a sticky note on the calendar with the story you'll tell. Put the chalk tin by your own front steps, however that looks in your life. Reaching your 80s is not a footnote. It's a deep chapter, dense with meaning, layered with grief and grace. You've earned the right to name it honestly and shape it bravely. You don't need a grand reinvention. You need a handful of steady habits and the quiet courage to keep showing up for your own life, day after ordinary day. Thank you for spending this time here. If you want to share one small thing you'll try this week, a call, a walk, a sentence, say it out loud to someone, and if no one's nearby, say it to yourself. Saying it is how we start, and starting is how we keep going.